Good evening. We are now opening the Town of North Attleboro Conservation Commission public meeting of June 4th, 2024. Members present, I'd like to welcome our newest member, Brian Flynn. Thanks for joining us tonight. And then we have Jessica Marino, Deb Cato, myself, Clay Hutchinson, and Lindsay Dillon. Moving down the agenda, first up on our hearing items, we have a request for determination of applicability, RDA, for 791 Old Post Road, Robert Prolu or Prolux, RDA 2407. I'll let you take it away once I read this into the record. In accordance to Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Mass General Laws, a public hearing will be held by the North Attleboro Conservation Commission on Tuesday, June 4th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. in the public meeting room at 49 Whiting Street, North Attleboro, Mass. On the notice of intent, this is, we have the RDA folder.
We should. Let me double check.
Not the right one. This one underneath is straight, or, no, that's it.
Oh, we do. It was right here. Sorry.
Stacks of filings. Thank you very much.
Yep.
In accordance with Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Mass General Laws, a public meeting will be held by the North Attleboro Conservation Commission on Tuesday, June 4th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. in the public meeting room at 49 Whiting Street, North Attleboro, Mass. on the request for a determination of applicability filed by Robert Prulux for property located at 791 Old Post Road. The project proposes a Title V septic replacement with a 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands. The application and plans can be found on the town website. If you want to just introduce yourself for the record, and then I'll let you take it away.
Sure. Good evening, Mark Mariano with Oak Hill Engineering, 368 Fairview Ave, Rehoboth, Mass. Tonight I'm representing Robert Prue for a Title V septic replacement at 791 Old Post Road. It's an existing house. It currently has a cesspool, so not compliant with current standards. So we're going to be replacing the current cesspool with a two-compartment 1,500-gallon tank and a 40 by 12 leaching field that consists of 4 chambers. Soil material out here is great, all sand. We didn't encounter any groundwater, but there is an area of wetlands that's off property that provides a buffer zone into our property, and that's why we're in front of you. We have protected the site with straw wattle, and we positioned the system approximately 68.56 feet away from the closest edge of the vegetated wetlands.
And did I read, or did you say this is a replacement? Is there an existing system
Yeah,
in
there's
place?
currently a cesspool.
And so that's being removed?
That will
or-
be decommissioned and filled or removed. It's currently in the location of where the new tank would go, so it has to get ripped up.
And so I'm assuming because that's where the old system is, that's currently existing lawn, there's
Yes,
no...
Yes, yeah, there's no tree removal associated with the project. Everything's in grassed area. It will be restored for grass as well.
All right, I will open it up and see if any of the commission members have any questions or comments. I'll start down here, right in the hot seat, Brian.
I think I'm good.
Are you anticipating any stockpiling of any materials anywhere?
There probably will be a little bit of stockpiling. That's why you kind of see that the erosion control is kind of pushed to the 50-foot limit to allow for that space to occur.
Okay. Nothing closer than 50 foot?
No,
Okay.
they got to keep everything inside the wattle area.
Got it. That's it for me.
I'm all set.
Lindsay?
You said that it was, what was originally there?
Cesspool.
Was there a leach field?
No leach field, just a cesspool.
Okay, I'm good.
So it sounds like there's no tree removals. Based on the site plans, it looks like there's a driveway, a loop driveway that comes in from Old Post Road. I'm
Correct.
assuming that would be your access point.
That would be our
to it.
access point, correct?
And I know that there's a garage in the back as well.
Yep.
I'm guessing that having the new system there in the lawn would not impede their use of that garage.
No, so this house is probably one of the former farmhouses for this area, and that garage is kind of a barn, more than a garage.
I just want to make sure that
Yeah.
if they're expecting access and they can't drive over this system, which I'm presuming.
Well, actually,
is-
this system you could drive on,
Yeah.
if you had to, but
Okay.
I recommend not
I just
to.
don't want to see any future tree removals because they positioned this here and then had to
No.
have access. Seeing it's within existing law, no tree removal more than 50 feet away. And then you're just going to loam and seed after.
And seed.
Return it
Erosion
right back
control
to
stays
lawn.
in place until lawn is mobile.
I would just like for you to notify, I think, our staff at least 3 days prior to work.
Yep.
And make sure that you can schedule time just to have them come out and check the erosion controls
Sure.
prior to digging things up.
Yep.
I will open it up at this time to see, well, I'll start with Tyler. Tyler, do you have any additional questions or comments on this one?
No? All set?
I will open it up to the public and see if anybody is here to speak questions or comments on this project. Seeing nobody jumping at it. With that, I will entertain a motion to close the hearing and issue a number 3, a determination of applicability, number 3, negative determination of applicability.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstaining? Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for coming in. And that'll just be contingent again on notifying staff prior to construction so that he can inspect those erosion controls. All right. That concludes our first hearing item. Moving down the agenda, we have a notice of intent NOI for 41 Roosevelt Avenue, Howard Bean, SC number 24309. It looks like DEP still has not issued that file number. If you'd like to come up, and before I have you present, I will just read this into the record. In accordance with Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Mass General Laws, public hearing will be held by the North Attleboro Conservation Commission on Tuesday, June 4th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. in the public meeting room at 49 Whiting Street, North Attleboro, Mass. On a notice of intent filed by Howard Bean for property located at 41 Roosevelt Avenue, North Attleboro, Massachusetts, Assessors Map 43, Parcel 216. The proposed project is to address a stream crossing for restoration plantings within the 100-foot riverfront area. The application and plans can be found on the town website. So if you just want to state your name for the record,
Yep, Howard Bean.
and thank you for joining us. I know this has kind of been an ongoing process. We previously had issued an enforcement order when it was determined that there was a bridge essentially that spanned the property across the stream behind your house. I believe that you have submitted the notice of intent. The GIS mapping plan you have mocked up with the restoration plantings. That was one of the requirements of that enforcement order, was to reestablish the banks with vegetation. I also understand there have been some comments from DEP that they were requesting stamped plans for this project.
Yes. So yeah, I felt like we were making a lot of progress. My impression was, what the goal was to protect the river through those restoration plantings, and had wrote up a plan to do that, and seemed to be going well. But the NOI recently ran into complications, and they had issues with the bridge. So I don't know where we stand right now, to be truly honest. They wanted like an environmental engineer to approve it.
Did they mention anything about stream crossing standards? Was that an issue that they brought up?
There was a
Okay.
lot.
Okay.
This is a pretty lengthy email. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that they've reached out. They reached out to you, and I believe they've also reached out to staff. I have a message in to the DEP reviewer to address some of those comments and get some of the questions so that we can have deliberation on what their comments are. I do believe that we have precedent for some of these after-the-fact enforcements where we require the notice of intent to try to meet the minimum for compliance. So I think that's a discussion that we also need to have from DEP and get some guidance from them as to whether those stamp survey plans and stream crossing standards need to be addressed to the comments that they provided. I do have as I said, I do have a message in. I apologize. I was out last week. I was away. So just the message in today, and I've not heard back. So we will not be able to close the hearing tonight. However, I would like to at least have the deliberation on the restoration plantings that you've proposed. I think that you've satisfied in the plan the requirements for our enforcement order. The only thing is, and I think Tyler noted this to me as well before in some of his notes, the planting list, the only thing that that we generally ask is that they are native plantings.
Okay.
Of the 3 plantings proposed, so you have the blueberry and the raspberry. You also have the ivory halos, which I believe is a dogwood.
Oh.
That dogwood is not native to North America. So if we could switch up that, if you'd be amenable to different species, like a flowering dogwood is native to this area, and
Yeah, sure.
it wouldn't maybe be as white. I think they're a little bit usually more purpley, but they're still flowering. They're aesthetic.
Yeah. No, that's fine with me. Yeah, I was unaware. Yeah, I wanted to do the right plantings. Yeah.
Otherwise, this project seems pretty straightforward. I will open it up to the commission members to see if anybody has any questions or comments. I'll start down here again. Ryan?
I think I'm good, all set.
I'm all set.
No questions.
I'm good.
So as far as tonight, as I said, unfortunately, we cannot close the hearing. We do have to address the comments from DEP. We will be having a discussion, probably offline with them to address their comments initially, and then see what else we need to require from you, if anything, to get this closed out.
Okay.
Once we settle that with DEP, they will issue that file number, and we can get the ball rolling. As for tonight, it looks like it's in pretty good order. I will see if, Tyler, do you have any questions or comments on this one?
Yeah, just procedurally, I wanted for clarification. You're not opening the hearing. You're not opening the hearing either because
We
there's
did-
no file number.
Yeah, we did open. We can open without the
Okay.
file number. We just can't
Okay.
close. Yep.
Gotcha. Okay.
So in this case, we can deliberate all we want.
Can't.
We just can't close and vote to
Okay.
issue because we don't have that last step from DEP.
Okay.
With that, I will see if there's anybody in the audience who has any questions or comments on this one. Seeing nobody jumping at that, I thank you for coming in with this plan. We will be in touch. For now, I think administratively what we're going to do is we're going to vote to continue this meeting, this hearing until our June 25th is the next, until June 25th.
Yep.
Hopefully we'll have some updates from DEP and we'll either be ready to close or we'll have something for you to let you know what the next steps are.
Okay.
If all goes well, hopefully we'll be ready to close. Again, it sounds like this plan brings the site back into compliance in our eyes. So again, we appreciate the effort you put forward with this.
Okay.
With that, I will entertain a motion to continue the hearing for 41 Roosevelt Avenue to June 25th.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstaining? Thank you.
So we'll wait for June 25th.
Be in touch.
Communication.
Yep.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll have updates before the 25th and we'll have a productive hearing on that one. If everything else is satisfied, you might not even have to come. It might be as easy as us closing and issuing that order. So we'll certainly be in touch.
All right, well, hopefully the best. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And again, thank you for taking the effort to put forth the application after everything else.
Try my best.
Those comments weren't circulated, were they?
I don't know that they were.
Okay.
I'll double
I
check.
just want to make sure I didn't miss something.
With that, moving down the agenda, we have a continued notice of intent NOI for 150 Draper Avenue. Kevin Lobas, RIC number 2430991. I believe this was continued from our first meeting in May. We've already read that into the record. All right, if you want to just introduce yourself for the record, and I'll let you walk us through some of the updates. I believe from the last meeting, we were waiting to see how things were going with the ZBA. There were questions just raised primarily on justification for being within 25 feet of the wetlands, and I believe that was stated to be due to the parking, but we wanted to see the status with the ZBA process as to the waivers for parking. There were some adjustments to the plans based on the peer review that I believe have since been submitted. There was also discussion on snow storage and the operation and maintenance. So if you want to introduce yourself and just fill us in.
You've given a great summary so far. Jack Jacoby, 144 Bank Street, to represent the applicant. At the outset, I believe Mr. Flynn probably can't participate because he has not been here as a member. So I think he would have to recuse himself. Would that be accurate?
I believe he can be present. He certainly
Be
will not.
present, but not be a voting member because he's missed more than one meeting, correct?
That is correct. He will be planning to abstain on this because because even with the Mullen rule, he will not be
Right.
an eligible member.
And then I
we
notice
still
an
have a
empty
quorum
seat
beyond.
at Mr. Bassett's chair. And so I'm wondering, do we go forward tonight without him being present, understanding that perhaps if we got to the point where you could close the hearing, maybe you wouldn't be in a position to take a vote. And so I just wondered the chair's thoughts on that issue. I mean, he can watch the video of this to get up to speed, but I'm thinking that it may have to go over to the 25th if need be, is just asking your opinion.
Yeah, so according to our records, all members have been present. The four members that are here have been present for all the hearings, as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
I don't know that we pulled any specific record to confirm that, but I have, this is the third substantial deliberation meeting for this hearing, and all four of us have been present for this being the third. So I don't believe quorum is an issue. I don't have that, I guess, confirmation for you, so I guess I would defer to you.
No, I would agree that 4 is a quorum. It's just that without the 5th member here, sometimes the applicant's a little concerned about votes, that's all. So if Mr. Bassett was able then to certify that he had watched the video of the meeting, then he could participate at your next meeting, as I understand it.
That is true. Under the Mullen Rule, as long as he is apprised of the previous meeting and attests to that, he has not missed. This is the first of these hearings that he will have missed, so that is true. He can be an eligible voter at the next meeting.
So with that being said, we'll give you the update. So first of all, with regard to the zoning board, that's on for 2 weeks from tonight, and I have spoken to town council this morning, and we probably will wrap up the presentation of evidence and at that hearing. But whether we close the public hearing or not until the July meeting or the August meeting is unclear. She wanted to talk to the chair to get his view on that, because one of the problems you face is that when you close the public hearing, if someone then has a question, we can't then answer the question. So we probably will wrap things up in 2 weeks as far as we're concerned, but then leave it open to their July meeting, assuming they have a quorum, in order to answer any questions they may have. Also, closing that hearing triggers a 40-day period for them to draft and file a decision, and town council is just starting on a proposed decision for them. So that obviously will take some deliberation and some draftsmanship. So I'm guessing that we probably will ask you at the close tonight to keep this open to June 25th, and then see if we can wrap things up with you that night.
I think that's more than reasonable. I also just realized our next meeting, because of overlap with other community meetings, isn't until the 25th. That's at least 21 days from today. So if we were to close today, we'd have to either get a waiver for issuance of a certificate of a order of conditions, a waiver of that 21 days, or we'd have to vote on the order tonight as well, and that's not currently drafted
So
for us.
we certainly would give you the waiver, but I think if we just continue to the 25th, it's the safest procedure. And that way, if anything comes up on the 18th at the zoning board, we would be able to let you know that as well. So with that said, there were some issues, as you described. We responded to the latest Beals and Thomas letter. You may have seen our response, hopefully. We did address snow removal separately, and we did address the issue of the placement of the garages. And so what I'm going to do is sit down and let Tom Schutz from Goddard come up and walk you through the latest response to Beals and Thomas, which covers those issues. And we would be happy to then answer questions after that.
Good evening, all. Tom Schutz from Goddard Consulting here on behalf of the applicant at 25 Draper Avenue in North Attleboro. So, as just stated, we did submit a second round of peer review responses to the Beals and Thomas response letter. That was from May. Just some minor plan changes, including the removal of some wetland flags and then also the revision of the buffer zone. So just some administrative changes to start off with. Then we were asked to respond to whether or not the garage should be allowed in the 25-foot buffer zone, and we did respond to that. And that includes, because that is going to serve as a retaining wall, and it's going to prevent any future encroachment into any closer to the wetland. It's also going to trap any kind of chemicals or salt from tires of a vehicle parked inside from entering the wetland. And finally, where it's going to provide stormwater management that's not currently in place on the site. And that all the stormwater captured from the roof water runoff system is going to be recharged into the stormwater basin that's underneath the parking lot. As for snow storage, all of the snow storage has been removed outside of the 25-foot buffer zone. And that just kind of entails all of our responses to peer review, somewhat short letter this time. If you have any questions for me, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Yeah, so it seems that the response letter and the Beals and Thomas review didn't leave a whole lot open. We did hear from Andrew Gorman with Beals and Thomas at the last hearing. And again, it seems that most of the outstanding comments, both from Beals and Thomas's review as well as from the commission, had to do with parking, location of the garage, snow storage, at least within the 25-foot, as well as the ZBA process, whether that parking waiver, that was the justification you gave us at the last meeting. So I suppose it sounds like we're still waiting for ZBA's process to confirm what has and has not been accepted under that, but
Understood.
that's being finalized, is my understanding. I will open it up to see if the commission has any additional questions. I'll start down here with you, Jessica.
Nothing for me right now.
I'm all set.
Lindsay?
I'm good.
So I did note the changes on the plans, and you addressed those in the comment letter as well. I also reviewed the operation and maintenance, both for construction phasing as well as post, in the I believe that was in the stormwater report. One of the things I think we're likely to request is that the operation and maintenance had weekly logs during construction phase. So that's something that we are likely to request as a special condition, that those be submitted to us through the construction phase, just to make sure that there's good housekeeping across the site throughout construction. As you mentioned, the garage placement, I don't think that I have a major issue. I can see where, on one hand, we don't like structures within the 25-foot. On the other hand, the garage is an impervious surface, same as it would be if it were pavement. I don't see a large difference between having a structure that comes up off the ground versus strictly pavement, since you're having to meet the parking requirements. So I do appreciate that the runoff from the roof runoff has been addressed to go to the stormwater basin. That would be, I guess, the bigger concern that I had, and that's been addressed. Tyler, did you have any other additional questions or comments?
No, I'm all set.
With that, I will. It sounds like we're just about ready to close. We've addressed the wetland concerns that we had, the stormwater related, and the peer review. I will open now to the public, and I will just kind of reiterate. It sounds like, according to the applicant, they're looking to continue out just in case there's any changes brought about by the ZBA process. So it is unlikely that we'll be closing the hearing tonight, but it sounds like our deliberation is just about coming to a close with this board, at least for wetland matters, the matters under the Wetlands Protection Act. With that, I will open to the public, see if anybody has any questions or comments, and I would just ask, if you do, if you could please come up to the podium so that we can capture it on the minutes for review.
I'll pass these out for.
I believe I am opening it right now.
Good evening, members of the Conservation Commission. My name is Patrick Cornell. I live directly across the street at 2 Norton Road. And I'm here with our neighbors this evening. I'm also joined by another neighbor.
Charles Duchesne, 22 Norton.
And what I presented to you members of the commission is 3 handouts. One is a site overlay. 2 is the property assessment from almost 2 years ago, May 2022. And 3 is an overlay of monitoring wells. The reason I did that is there's a lot of documents for this project. And I think it's important to point out that throughout this site, there's been contamination. Some of it's been remediated, but there's also residual contamination. And I really wanted to point out that at boring B3, which is at the extreme west side of the property line, behind the old garage, there is a boring that's still contaminated. So back in, I believe, 2021, there was a LRA, or limited remediation action, that removes some contamination, but it's still residual. So as you go through and look at this report, to me, this isn't buttoned up. This isn't a done deal yet. There's contamination throughout this site that even there's monitoring wells here. So in the developer's application, they submitted this site with monitoring wells. As this job progressed, those monitoring wells are nowhere to be seen. So I'm wondering what's going on here. Is that the tank grade for the 4,000 gallon tank that was there? And so the testing that they did, if you look, B1 and B2 are in impervious areas where they could go in and do testing. B3, along the property line, only went down to 4 feet. So right out of the gate, there's contamination. As they went deeper, it got even more contaminated. So it just begs the question, how contaminated is this area? Because it seems like even after one round of remediation, there's still contamination at this site, and it's in a wetland. Secondly, as you look at the drawing here, that report states that the 45-foot radius circles, that one at the top is where the old above-ground storage tank was. That above-ground storage tank is noted in that report that there was a leak at some point, and there's a note that says the groundwater is slightly contaminated in one of the monitoring wells. So as I go through that report, there's some information that seems kind of light to me that really, I think, requires further investigation. And one, were the monitoring wells sampled in that last report? 2, why were the wells removed from later drawings? 3, boring B3 is contaminated. Why did the boring only stop at 4 feet, and why was it not investigated further? Because it seems like the deeper you go, the dirtier it's getting. And lastly, that location where the monitoring wells are, will that area be tested for contamination once the asphalt is removed? So those are my comments on what we're seeing on the site here, that there still is a level of contamination here. Second, the encroachment. If you look at this, so the existing structure at the garage is about 2,500 square feet. 700 of it are in the wetlands. Tyler, can you go to the next page, please? This is a proposed site. So the new garage structure at 13 bays is 3,100 square feet. Not quite half of it is encroaching in the wetlands. So it's quite a substantial jump from what's existing to what's proposed. And when you look at it, 9 of those garage spaces are in the zone, and the 10th one is partially in that zone. Next slide, please. So when you put one on top of the other, the yellow is what's existing there. So there's the footprint of the old house, there's the footprint of the garage or the garage slab that's there now. And when you look at that garage, the proposed garage structure, it is much larger than what's there. So are they encroaching the same? No. They're almost doubling what the encroachment is on that 25-foot buffer. From a comment standpoint, I do ask that the commission review that old report. I think it is important for this meeting to review the document, take a look at it, see what you think. In my mind, there is still something that's there. I also think that with the monitoring wells that were not shown on later plans, if there was an old tank grave there and you had contamination in a monitoring well, that also begs the question of how contaminated is this site? What are you opening up once the slabs come off? Secondly, as I'm closing this, is that this garage structure, as proposed, is really an extreme encroachment into that 25-foot buffer zone. And as you can see, is much larger than what's there originally. And as you look at the site, and this is away from the conservation areas, that there's really no open space on this site to begin with. So to have your garage take up the full western half of the property, they've already lost a little piece of land at the southwest side of the site. Is open space a bad thing? I don't think it is. So thank you for your consideration.
I'd like to say, these meetings might go a lot better if we all had a beer before we sat down. Strikes me and my fellow neighbors in going over this that we might be skipping across this whole contamination issue a little too easily and without substantial enough facts, measurements. I mean, what's the rush? Why don't we take the time to investigate? Where are those wells? All of a sudden they disappear. Why is that? Is there an intention here to kind of push it to the background? I don't know. But this is an example, a case upon which there'll be a rush of development in town to do similar kinds of things. And the thing that you're going to need to remember as a board is whatever you give away now, you're likely to have to give away many times again. There are questions here that aren't being answered. And even the peer review wasn't totally demanding on a couple things. Almost like they took it and didn't want to argue any more about it. Forget which one in particular I'm thinking of there. So we don't feel reassured that the information that we ought to have is there. We question the reasoning and the reasonableness of this whole proposal anyway. There's no question here that this thing is way too big for the space. You got the previous slide superimposed over the house and the garage. It's like minuscule compared to this thing. So we're trying to get a whole lot of use out of very little space. What was it, the scepters that you were talking about? We're going to end the plan calls for 2 of these.
The storm scepters.
Storm scepters. Easily overcome by very heavy periods of rain. And they call for periodic maintenance. And who's going to be there, hit them over the head to be doing that maintenance? I don't think the town has a very good record for that. So the more margin we build into the safeguards that you determine, the better off the town will be, better off our neighborhood will be, and future neighborhoods as well. There's a soft side to this. There are very real people with very real objections, a justified anxiety over the future of this development project and how it impacts our life, our quality of life. We ask you very carefully to, respectfully, to carefully review once again and take issue with anything that you think is less than complete in its thought, preparation. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we move on to anybody else with comments, I would just like to address some of these. We'll certainly take a look at the reports that you provided. I will just begin, though, by remarking that when there's contamination at a site, oftentimes that is out of our jurisdiction. That falls under the Board of Health and the Department of Environmental Protection, a different division than the Wetlands and Waterways, but rather I think it's the waste. Hazardous waste. So usually when you have sites that have determined to have contamination that meets certain thresholds, they provide what's called an AUL, an activity and use limitation, and that's usually ascribed to the site. So we're going to look over the information that you provided. We're certainly going to do our due diligence. Generally, though, when you have monitoring wells, if they've been put in there, if they were ordered to be put in there by the state, then there's usually some kind of action the state has taken. If they were put in there just for due diligence and they found contaminants below certain thresholds that didn't trigger things, then it may not have triggered limitations to use. It may have not been determined to fall under certain uses, making it worse. Either way, it may not be in our ballpark. So that's one of the things we're going to look at based on the information you provided. But I just want to temper some of that by saying that a lot of this would fall under the Board of Health and at the state level, the Department of Environmental Protection, rather than the wetland side of things, even though there is some overlap. Usually they supersede us, though, when there are limited uses and site contaminations that have to be addressed. As I said, the applicant is looking to continue the meeting at least to our next hearing, continue the hearing at least to our next meeting. So we'll take a look over the information provided. We'll make sure that we're not missing any due diligence that we might have missed that had any kind of site restriction use restrictions. I believe that that would have also come up through a lot of their other due diligence, but again, we will do our due diligence on that. We also hear your comments on operation and maintenance concerns about the infiltration system and the storm scepters going into them. So thank you for providing comment. From there, I'll see if there's anybody else in the audience that wishes to speak. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind just coming in vicinity of one of the microphones.
My name is Pat Murphy, 71 Norton Road, and I have a few comments about garages. I'm sorry, my neighbors want a copy, so I don't have enough to give everyone.
It's okay, we can share. Thanks. Share with you.
I'd like to leave this slide up, please.
Sure.
First, I wanted to commend the chairman and the Conservation Commission for not allowing buildings to be constructed inside the 25-foot buffer for the last 17 months. I've read the minutes of your meetings for the last 17 months, and if you think this meeting is boring, you should try reading the minutes to see what is really boring. But it took me about 2.5 hours, and I read the minutes. And you have never allowed a new construction to be built within the 25-foot buffer zone for the last 17 months. So I did this year and all of 2023. Now, the next thing I would like you to look at is sheet 2.0, which is up here for you. And look at how many of the garages are in the buffer zone. By my count, 10 out of 13 are inside the buffer zone, which is the red line that kind of comes down the west side of the building. or of the property. So, to me, this is just another way of getting more money for the contractor. He's not going to give those to the residences for free. So they're up here violating your 25-foot buffer zone so that they could charge somebody $250 to $300 each to park their car there. That's something that you don't have to do. You don't have to allow that. The next thing I'd like to talk about is the Beals and Thomas Goddard Consulting response. Can you put that up, please?
Just a moment.
I'd like page 2, please. Towards the bottom. I'm really just concerned with what comes after GC5. Okay, where it says B&T response, we request that the applicant provide commentary as to whether practicable alternatives to the site. Let me read it from my paper. To site the garage farther away from the BVW were considered. In the whole response, as we read the response from GC6, while the proposed garage is in close proximity to the BVW, the majority of the structure will be within already disturbed area within the buffer zone. Well, as others have pointed out, this garage is twice the size of the other garages that were taken down last week. It's twice the size. And when Mr. Witchy built his garages, there was probably no one knew that there were wetlands there. And I'm sure he didn't come before a Conservation Commission in 1945 or 1950 when he built the garages. These people are coming before you in 2024, and they're asking to build within the 25-foot buffer. And you haven't given anyone the right to do that in the last 17 months. Now, they talk about the cement slab, preventing any further encroachment or grading closer to the BVW. They could just tell the residents, you can't use the property west of the building. You know, put up a sign there, or make it open space so that the kids could go have a catch there. That's not going to disturb the BVW. Conservation Commission can stop the garages from being built so that the applicant would not need a waiver for a side yard setback. So I know this has nothing to do with you, but these garages are going to be within 6 feet of the side yard line. That is a 60% ask for a variance. Side yard line is supposed to be 15 feet. They're going to ask for 6 feet. And I know it has nothing to do with you, but 9/15 the last time I checked was reduced the fraction to 3/5, which is a 60% ask for a variance. More than half. Now, most important in their response, and I'd like you to take a minute to read that response, and it does go on to the next page, and, you know, if you give them a couple of minutes to read that. As far as the snow being, you know, stops them from pushing the snow there, well, the people who are plowing the snow on their property, they're working for them. They could tell the people, don't push the snow west of the building. That's not a hard ask. Now, my last point, and I think this is the most important. GC didn't answer the question. Where in their response does it say they sought other places on the site to put these garages? They never said they looked anywhere. What they're saying is, we want to put the garages where we proposed them. Now, I'm very disappointed that Beals and Thomas didn't respond back to them and say, give me two alternatives. You gave me nothing. We asked you to look for an alternative place to put the garages. And you said, we want to put them there. Don't worry, it'll be better that they're there. It'll help us out. The applicant is trying to build too big a project on too small a property that has wetland problems. This board has the right to not allow the garages to be built. It is important that you make the applicant find a place to put the garages outside the 25-foot buffer zone. Otherwise, you will be setting a precedent for all applicants, especially 40B applicants, to seek such relief. This town needs over 800 affordable housings in order to come into compliance with the state. This project, at the most, will give 10. At the most, will give 10. How is that helping the town? What are they doing for the town? They want. What are they giving the town? 10 affordable houses when we need over 800. Minuscule. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. I would just like to address, and I apologize for not addressing it in the first set of comments as well. It seems that there is the recurring comments on building within the 25-foot. The way I see the comments kind of breaking down are in two parts. One is allowing structures within the 25-foot, which is often something the commission has avoided doing. And then our, I guess, policy for no alterations within the 25-foot. As far as structures in the 25, well, let me address first, I guess, the alterations within the 25-foot. We do have a policy with the town. This board has generally upheld it, that at all points practical, we will avoid alterations, allowing alterations within the 25 feet of a wetland. We call that the 25-foot buffer zone. In an ideal world, we would be codifying that under a wetlands protection bylaw. It is something that we are hoping to have in the future, is a bylaw that protects this. It is not specifically or illicitly protected under the state regulations as a specific buffer zone. Really what the state looks for is what happens in the buffer zone and how is that going to adversely impact the wetlands? How do we mitigate for that? So some towns have codified these no disturb zones essentially within a certain distance from the wetland. As for policies, unfortunately with the town, for us it's just a policy. Once we get it codified into a wetlands protection bylaw, if we get it that far and if the town approves us to have a wetlands protection bylaw that includes something like the no alteration zone, bylaws are often, or are generally waived under the 40B process. That is where the 40B differs from a lot of different applications. So when we're considering this project, legally, it's a little bit difficult for us to stick to certain precedents which are waived under normal codified processes. Again, being a 40B process, that's why it goes before the ZBA and why they have ultimate authority, except under the Wetlands Protection Act, which are the state regulations. So I want to tell you that we are considering it. We're certainly trying to mitigate for anything and prevent work within the 25-foot. But we also open ourselves to appeal. There's no reason why the applicant could not appeal us prohibiting work. And unfortunately, our precedent is not likely to stand up because it's a policy and it's done in the scope of a 40B project, which waives bylaws. So on a normal project that's not 40B, I think there's more legal leeway for us to be doing that. In cases like this, we have to be balancing what we can truly determine and what we can't. I say that now, and I don't want to take the voice away from any of my fellow commission members. I just want to give a little bit more context to where some of these arguments come from. And I'm certainly going to allow any commission members to speak to that if they so choose. Again, they may differ from me. As for structures in the 25-foot buffer zone, the garage here, we do have what was just on the screen, which shows the garage within the buffer zone, the portions of the garage bays which are within that 25-foot buffer zone. In my opinion, again, I think we have to weigh alterations versus non-alterations rather than where is the garage and where is it pavement. And the way that distinction in my mind is made is because they're addressing the runoff from the roof line. So functionally, from a top-down perspective, there's not a whole lot of difference from open pavement or a one-story garage that close. I think oftentimes when we run into these types of calculations, we need to be considering as a board those alterations to the extent of the boundary of where the garage is as an impervious surface, not necessarily as a garage versus open driveway. So again, just a little bit more context to that. I see your hand. I'm going to let you in just a moment. I just want to see, again, I don't want to take voices away from any of my fellow commission members. I don't urge anybody necessarily to speak if you don't have anything to say, but if anybody has anything to add, I certainly want to not take your ability away. And I'll start, I guess, down here.
No, I think you said it. I think you said it right. And I think voting on this notice of intent, knowing that it could be appealed and go to DEP, may not be as stringent as a local board may be. Just understanding that.
I think that's another good point, just if you don't mind me elaborating.
Yeah. Sure.
When a project gets appealed, there's usually two courses of action that DEP does. DEP is the state organization that oversees the Conservation Commission and all of our permits that we issue under the state regulations. When an appeal is submitted, either by an applicant, an abutter, or an aggrieved party, usually there's two recourses. One is they can remand it back to the commission and say, redo this, you didn't do this correctly. In a case like this, it's more likely to be the second option. It's hard to say, but the other option is that they issue a superseding order of conditions. And sometimes there are projects where our conditions, as hard as we condition things, might be rolled back. The state may not be as stringent in how they do it. So again, there's a certain balancing act that we need to take. How do we mitigate these without triggering a superseding order that may remove some of our other policies or some of the other things that we request? The state might not be as stringent at requesting. So
Yep.
just to kind of distinguish between us, we are beholden to the state. Anything else, Jess?
No.
Deb?
I think he wants to.
Oh, I saw, and I know the person next to you also had their hand raised, and I will allow you to get back up. I just wanted to get commission members first.
I agree with what my other commission member said, and I will say, if you're really concerned about wetlands, we tried to get a bylaw passed probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago now, and it didn't pass representative town meeting. We wanted a bylaw for the wetlands, and that was voted down by the town. So if it comes up again, I don't know if the town has, I don't know how the new town, it's up to the town council. I would support it, though, if it comes up, because protecting wetlands is really important. But that's, goes beyond what we're discussing here. Just needed to get that in, because I worked really hard on that committee, and it didn't pass. All right, other than that, I will say, I understand your concerns, and we'll look at the information that you gave us really carefully.
Thanks, Deb.
That's all you have.
Lindsay?
Yeah, I was gonna comment on what Deb was just speaking about, and to add to it a little bit is, before I was on the board, the former chair, who had served a very long time, had worked very hard and wanted to have a bylaw, more bylaws set. But even as a selectman before the council, it still wouldn't go through. I got on the board, I remember countless presentations. So I know there was another one, you said like 7 or 8 years ago, but this has been going on for over 30, as far as I know. So we've been trying, and it's just, and what's tough is, like you guys have noticed, reading our minutes and even watching if you guys even watch these, God bless you. But we try really hard to be consistent, but this type of development that falls under a totally different thing, 40B, which we are going to be seeing more in town because of the way the direction of the town it's going in, and what this town wants to do. We will be seeing more of these changes, and it's just getting harder and harder. So there's a huge difference between just a regular subdivision or somebody changing plans on their house or doing remodeling, as opposed to this type of building. But we do hear you. We are trying to do our due diligence and work hard to make sure that there's nothing skipped over or glazed over. And, we really appreciate your feedback. We really appreciate how hard you guys are working with your homework and research, and I'm sure multiple phone calls. We do hear you. That's just all I want to say.
Thank you. And I did see there was 2 hands, I think, I guess probably related to what we were just saying, and then I will open it again for anybody who's not had an opportunity to speak. But yes, if you wouldn't, again, mind just coming in vicinity of one of the microphones.
And Pat Murphy, 71 Norton Road. You talked about the garages, being impervious. But my thought is that if the garages are taken away, that area could be grassed over. So it would become pervious, which would be much better for the amount of open space on the property. And it doesn't have to be paved for parking. They could take the top floor off, and they could go with less units, and so they would not need the 13 extra parking spaces. That might be a nice place for some of the children who are there to have a catch. I read Mr. Jacoby's response letter to my zoning board rant. And, he says, we requested so many square feet for each unit of open space. And he said, well, keep in mind that 30 out of the 40, I'm just picking a number, it was kind of high, units are going to have a balcony. Well, have you ever tried to have a catch on a balcony? I just think if you take down the garages, don't allow them at all. And that's your decision. And you're going to make it not impervious, but pervious land that children can play on. That would be a much better idea than to just pave it so that we can get 13 more parking spaces.
Thank you for the comments. Was there additional that you wanted to as well?
Charles Duchesne, 22 Norton. Excuse me. I really worry for the town because I realize now what we're up against. I understand and appreciate the serious attitude you all bring and your empathy toward the people, but you're not really helping us. You're not helping the town. I mean, if you're going to give them everything they want here, it's going to get worse. The next time, it's going to be worse. We're going to be abused. This is going to be a place that they can steamroll in any damn thing they want. These guys come from all over hell. Right now, we got more immigrants than they know what to do with. It's a good time to build a building and fill it full of apartments and, let the government pay the rent. We're being abused as a town. There's no question about it, and particularly as a neighborhood. And we're powerless to do a damn thing about it. It's awful, disgusting. So I appreciate the fact you don't feel good about your situation as a board. I think I'd feel the same way if I were on the board, so I'm not being accusatory. But it's a pretty lousy state of affairs nevertheless. Thank you.
Thank you for the comments. Was there anybody else that wished to speak? We have someone up here, and then I will get to you. Would you mind just turning the microphone? And you don't have to be right up against it. It just helps get it on the recording.
Yeah. Kara Caranci, 147 Draper, basically across the street. So where you say you don't want to mess with, you want to allow it because of the existing structure, but the existing structure is only a fraction of what they want to build. And for what was there, that was grass and open space. I mean, it was a dog run. So it's not like it was continuation and being paved right there. That was grass, and then you had driveway. So there was a buffer of grass in that 25-foot buffer zone, not just building and pavement. But that totally would have been better to, instead of putting kids in an open space along the freaking highway to play, move it to the grass next to the wetlands. If you really wanted to put them in a safer spot, not cars attempting to enter the highway, where you could throw stuff at it and hit cars potentially coming up there, because it is fairly close. There's a little bit of a divot, and then there's cars flying up, trying to get up to speed, and you run the potential of a Frisbee hitting one of those cars that are up going 40 miles an hour with the freaking Frisbee in the windshield. What's gonna happen? Or a kid goes after a ball that goes off in there. You could totally move those garages to someplace else on that property. Not put them right, I get that they want to make the garages, but that's more than garages. That's garages plus grass and bushes and things. So it's, and on top of it, if you give them a little bit, they have proven time and time again where they've lied to the committees, they have misled the committees, and they have totally screwed up their proportions when they've done stuff. I mean, they said they were going to be safe when they removed the stuff, and they had bulldozers, like an excavator or whatever, and the trucks coming out, and that is not a commercial size road, so those trucks had a hard time coming in and out of there. And they had running 18-wheelers waiting to get backed up into there next to kids waiting for the bus, because they said they were going to avoid the kids during school hours. They weren't gonna endanger them with heavy equipment. No, they did not. They started at 7 while the kids were waiting for the bus on Norton Road. And that is them lying when they said they were gonna be safe. I mean, if they're gonna play fast and loose, and that's what they're doing right now. I mean, these things are down to feet and inches. They have all of those parking spaces that they're worried about that are smaller than standard spaces, and they're trying to cram them in there. Have any of you seen the hospital parking that they're doing over at Sturdy? And you've seen those parking lots get crowded? When those parking lots are crowded and those spots are smaller, they're like sandwiched in. A couple of weeks ago, my mom's car got hit. It was a 3-car accident. She was parked. They hit parked car into parked car into parked car. So, I mean, when you jam them in like that in such a small space, it's not safe to do. I have very, very low beliefs that they're gonna respect what's going on with what they're doing. And if you give them an inch, they're gonna take a mile. They're gonna go, oop, the engineer did it wrong. Oops, the guy put it in 3 feet over from where it was supposed to. Oopsie. And then you're going to have, instead of 6 feet, you're going to have 4 feet, 3 feet. That's what they've been doing. You go, okay, we're going to do this. We promise we're going to. No, they don't. They removed the asbestos, blamed it on vandals, and then said, oh, we filed the paperwork for its removal. So we thought we were all good. They've been doing this for how many years? They're well established. They didn't know they needed to have their documents lined up and permission before they started doing stuff. They didn't even have their erosion control or anything. I mean, as they did it, this one, that when they finally took it down, they had the tanker there to hose everything down just in case there was more crap flying around. But still, I have zero faith that they will adhere to what they're doing, and giving a larger roof to collect more rainwater is not an excuse to put that giant thing there. No. So, I mean, you can at least let your voices be heard. Even if it goes to appeal, you've at least said something about it. Not just go, oh, they're going to appeal it and we're going to lose. But at least you made an effort into it and let them know that this stuff is not right. Even if it goes through, you can speak up and say, this is not right. And what they're doing right there is not right. That's way too big, and not, it's all pavement. They want to put kids on that lot. Say outdoor space is balcony. Yes, go play. Throw your kids out on the balcony to go play. Yeah, that's real good. That's right up there with, let's go play next to the exit. That's what their thought is on the people that are living there. Play on a thing where you can fall 20 feet, play next to oncoming traffic. That's just not right. So they could have moved that garages. They didn't because they needed it to make that monstrous thing.
Thank you for your comments.
Yeah.
I would like to reiterate that we are limited in our scope to wetlands protection, that's a lot of it is ZBA. I would also like to address, it sounded like you also had concerns about encroachment, giving an inch, them taking a mile. The applicant at this point should be aware, anybody that's worked with wetlands, under the wetlands regulation should be aware. Our process does not stop just at an approval. They get a permit from us and they have to complete it essentially to spec, or they have to have deviations approved. The deviations are minor. We give them an inch, they take an inch and a tenth of an inch.
Yeah, well,
maybe we can have them do additional plantings. If they take a mile, it is under this board's purview, and we've had this discussion on our other projects as well. They may have to remove established built things to bring it back into compliance with that permit. So I would just like to reassure everybody that there is a mechanism for addressing any kind of additional encroachment or taking leeways to do things that are within our jurisdiction. If they encroach into the wetlands, they may end up with cease and desist fines, and they may have to remove even fully finished structures if they're beyond the approved limit of work. So, I mean, there is precedent for that, and it's certainly something that we do keep eyes on through the longevity of the project. So I just wanted to address that specific comment with a very clear answer on that there can't be any encroachment beyond what is approved once it's a legal document. I would like to see, I believe there was somebody else in the back as well, if you wouldn't mind just coming up.
Hi, Glenn Whitney, 186 Craig Ave. I appreciate you won't be able to give me an answer based on everything I've heard tonight and the restrictions that you're under. But as we look at the garages here, 10 out of the 13 are within the 25-foot border zone. I believe in the last meeting you said the 25-foot was a discretionary distance. At the northwest corner of the top garage, that's 6 feet from the wetlands itself, less than 6 feet because the wetlands come into the property. So I guess I'm just asking, at what distance from the wetlands do you consider it to be inappropriate for anything to take place? 1 yard, 1 foot, 6 feet, 6 yards, 6 inches, you know. I don't know that you can give me an answer, probably not, but I just want to present that, you know. What do you feel comfortable with that's acceptable?
Yeah,
Or
I
not
can give you a
acceptable?
non-quantifiable answer. I mean, it's
you.
difficult to go by a specific distance. Discretionarily, again, when we're not dealing with projects that have certain leeways under the ZBA and 40B approval process, regardless, the state regulations are all about, are there going to be adverse impacts to the wetlands? What are those adverse impacts likely to be, and how do we mitigate for those? So when dealing with buffer zone, there isn't a specific performance standard. There is no distance that the state defines, and 25 for us is pretty arbitrary even in our policy. When we look at the state regulations and what's enforceable, you could have a project, if you could prove to a commission that you can build within an inch of a wetland without having any adverse impacts on the wetland, then you could do that. I mean, the regs might allow for that. That's something that you could certainly argue for and potentially win in court in front of the state under that process. There are even instances where there are wetlands that have historically been built over. Agricultural exemptions have existed for almost as long as the Wetlands Protection Act has existed. We do see, I don't know if I've seen it in my tenure here, but we have seen golf courses that have had wetland and hydric soils within the greenways, the fairways, because those golf courses existed prior to the protection of wetlands. All of a sudden, the changed use has triggered protection of the wetlands, and some of that has to be restored. So there are even instances where wetlands are encroached beyond and have been legally encroached beyond that are pulled back and restored. So a set distance is very hard to determine. In cases, on a case-to-case basis, permit to permit, we're looking at what are the adverse impacts to the wetlands and how do we mitigate for those. So in this case, if we're considering this project as it is proposed, which it seems we are, if it's 6 or 8 feet from the corner of that wetland flag, that may be something that we have to consider, because again, under those wetland regulations, the buffer zone is, will this have an adverse impact to the wetland? If yes, how do we mitigate for it? Does the mitigation provide? And then it's up to, again, a multi-member board with different backgrounds and experiences that are versed on a lot of this to make those determinations. And in this case, we've also determined, we've had, peer review process. We've been doing a fair amount of due diligence to help us make informed decisions on that. But I just wanted to, again, there's not a set length. There's kind of a process, and there is a thought process that goes with it. So thank you for the comments. Was there anybody else that wishes to comment or question tonight?
The impact on the wetlands and the animals and things. This was one family that's lived there. There was one woman living there, not 160 people next to this wetland. They're trying to put 40 units with, none of them are going to be single occupancy. Most likely double, triple, quadruple plus. So you're talking about at least 100 people right next to that wetlands, where there was just a single person living, and a dog sometimes. And that space, you're gonna have a whole lot right up against it. Now you have a whole bunch of vehicles moving constantly next to it, which is gonna impact whatever is nesting in that or using that wetlands. You're having a whole lot more traffic right there against that line. That is gonna have an impact on what's using those wetlands, what's using that water source. If you're constantly having cars right there, 6 feet away from them, then you're gonna scare away the deer that are there. You're gonna scare away the turkeys, and you're gonna scare away everybody else. The rats, fine, but those are probably gonna be attracted by the dumpsters that you're putting on the corner in the wetlands. So it's all gonna have an impact on the wetlands, what they're planning right there. That's not gonna be green space. That's gonna be traffic moving, cars moving. That's not kids playing a couple hours. That's cars constantly coming and going and smelling of fuel. Right there where there was nothing.
Yeah, Kira, to your comment, like you said, previous owner, one car.
Yeah,
40 units, they're saying it's 182 vehicles a day.
yeah.
So, yeah.
It's
Is there
gonna have an impact.
Yes.
Yes, most definitely.
100%.
That, yeah.
Thank you. Last chance for anybody else tonight. Questions or comments? Seeing no additional. The applicant.
Yeah, I know, I didn't.
No, yeah. We're not making the motion quite yet. I just wanted to give a recap. We have heard the abutter comments and concerns. We'll make sure to have our missing member go through the Mullen rule ahead of the next meeting so that we're all prepared. And then it sounds like we're waiting for any updates on the ZBA process at their next meeting here in June ahead of our 25th meeting. Was there anything else you were wishing to?
Only very briefly, I want to thank the chair and the board for the comments that they've made, so I don't have to repeat those. As far as contamination on the property, it is outside your jurisdiction, but my client had a licensed site professional do a thorough analysis of the property prior to purchasing, which is the due diligence any purchaser would do, and the conclusion was that the site was not contaminated, so just want to put that out on the record. Also just to emphasize that the alternative for the garages is not where they would be located. The issue is that we need to provide the 1.67 parking spaces per unit in order to meet the traffic analysis that was peer-reviewed and determined to be the appropriate minimum number of parking spaces for this, so that there would not be grass where those garages are. And I think our position is clear that those garages actually perform a function of protecting the wetlands, because no trash will blow across, no things that leak into the parking lot from a car will end up there. They're one-story structures, and so we need to have those in order to provide. Moving them to another part of the site would actually, in my opinion, be less environmentally sound, because they do perform a function of blocking everything on site from the wetlands.
Butter would work pretty well there too, I believe.
I don't think we have back and forth this way. So let me just say then that our request is to continue this to the June 25th meeting.
All right, any last comments, questions from the commission? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to continue the hearing for 150 Draper Avenue. Just get the DEP file number here. Nope. DEP file number 2430991 to June 25th.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All those abstaining? Thank you. We'll see you on the 25th.
See you then.
And that should be here again in this room. I wonder if this was their assessment.
Yeah, I don't know. What does it say on the top? Triumvirate?
I didn't know, because I don't think 40B actually qualifies, and it doesn't matter because it's within buffer zone, but there's no exemptions for them for a limited project, is there?
I don't believe under limited project
Because
standards.
I use that a lot for like linear transportation stuff, but I didn't know if like
I believe the
affordable
limited is
housing.
for utility and public
Yeah,
use.
okay.
I don't. That's something that we can certainly look into.
Well, they wouldn't be, there's no performance standards that they'd be varying from, because the 100-foot buffer zone doesn't have that, so. Also, who's voting against the bylaw?
Oh, it was more than half the town. It was crazy.
Why?
I was so sad.
Well,
Yeah.
What it does is it
gives restrictions to like within town itself, and he didn't like that, so they convinced the public that it would restrict them more.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, people.
Hearing that restricted word.
They didn't,
Near a
they weren't
wetland or
really
something. that-
Educated correctly on
Yeah,
what it
they'll be
did.
able to tell them what to do and what not to do.
And they wouldn't allow us to do a presentation, like, to the public.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So I would just like to
Yeah,
continue moving
yeah.
down.
So sorry.
I do think that we have to get back to the bylaw discussion, though, in the near future, just
Yep.
because it's about time, especially with the rainfall and the concerns
I
we've been
do think
having
we
in
have
this
some.
town, but- Moving down onto, that concludes our hearing items, moving down onto other business. I believe we have listed 41 Bryan Drive for a change plan, and I believe they've requested a continuation on that one.
They have, yep.
Okay, so they'll be coming before us on the 25th. Just as due diligence, I guess I'll entertain a motion to continue the discussion for 41 Bryan Drive to June 25th.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? All those abstaining? We have a set of minutes. Let's circle back to that. I believe you're here for Martin Conservation Area. Yes. We do have a discussion item for the Martin Conservation Area. Tyler, do you just want to bring us up to speed with where we're at?
Sure. We've been, last 4 or 5 weeks, I think, we've been in touch with Keep North Attleboro Beautiful. Jill and Marcia have been amazing in meeting with us. Clay and I met with them and with DPW at the Martin Conservation Area a few weeks ago now, and we've had another meeting or two since then to talk about next steps and how do we go about maybe doing an opening of sorts, maybe it's a soft opening or a grand opening. The plan when Shannon was still here was to have a grand opening this spring. Obviously, things got shaken up a little bit. Shannon leaving, you're needing to get my bearings here and know where we're at, and so we're not gonna make that spring grand opening plan, but we have been talking about the main loop of the trail, making that a bit more formal, but not, it would still be rugged, a rugged trail to give the capacity we have. Staff, we don't really have staffing to do much maintenance. We do have some volunteers through Friends of North Attleboro Parks, as well. To some extent, I'm sure Keep North Attleboro Beautiful will be involved in maintaining, with the park, consulting about that and sharing their expertise on how to keep litter down and everything, keep things looking good, and having it to be a great place for people to gather and enjoy nature and connect, spend time. A focus that has come up through the meetings is since it's such a wet site, that having some bog bridges, maybe 6 or 7 at least, would be important for at least basic functionality of the main loop trail, because it's constantly very wet, no matter where you put the trail. Let's see. Also, blazing for the trail, at least some, so people can see where it is, even if the trail is well loved and used and fairly obvious. It's always great to know, to be able to look ahead and see, oh yeah, I'm going in the right direction. Especially in the early in the season when there's not really much growth. Everything's brown. You can't necessarily tell. Winter months. So blazing and replacing signage that was stolen. Who knows who over the last year.
Which signage?
There were maybe 4x4, I think 6x6 signs. Saying fishing. The fishing spot here.
Oh yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Picnic area here.
My kids probably have it on their wall now.
Yep. So it's been great. I know we have some students that were interested in helping some capacity, as well as keep Friends of North Attleboro Parks and Scouts, that group as well. I believe that covers most of what we've been talking about. Having a good map for the kiosk would be great. The kiosk was built within last year. It's right in the picnic
That was
area.
the Eagle Scout project, right?
I believe so. Eagle
Yeah.
Scout.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great job.
Nice.
Oh, it doesn't have a map in it, so we have a new map again.
I've gotten started on that with. I can share that with, of course, share that with the commission. Get your thoughts on how you want, the park to look and function.
We didn't know until recently who the Friends of the North Attleboro Parks were.
I never heard of them. I never heard of them until
So
tonight.
they are a group of men who have kids who are Eagle Scouts and Scout leaders. And they're very interested in continuing working with the Scouts and the kids who need service hours, mostly at Bishop Theater, because their kids went to Bishop Theater. So I got in touch with them because they do love woodworking. They built all the picnic tables.
I pause you just a moment.
Yes.
Could I request you guys to take those 2 chairs? Just pull them up a little bit closer so the mic can pick you up for our minutes.
Oh dear.
You can even sit a little bit closer to us if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah,
Just
Sandra would
giving your
be-
name.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can pull. It can be casual enough. You can bring the chairs right over. You don't have to be standing at the podium. But if we could at least get the recording and just get your names to the record.
I forgot it was being recorded. So anyway, they're 501(c)(3). They work with the parks. They built all the picnic tables up at World War I Park recently and some signage, and they do a lot of woodworking projects. Picnic tables, benches, signs, the blazes, bog bridges, all those things. So I got in touch with them, and they have been wonderful, and they have committed to, they were there today. They were cleaning away brush that had overgrown since the DPW had gone in and made that original path, and the path down to the beach, and they cleaned everything up. They blew off the pea stone paths. They took away, cut up, and put into the woods some big branches that had fallen down, and they have committed to maintain that area going forward. They have approval from their board, and with the help of the kids that they know and work with, they are going to go a couple times a year to clear the trail and clear the paths and keep the brush down and take care of things that need to be tended to. If a tree goes down, I can call them. They'll go out and clear it away. Well, not clear it away because they want to keep it on the property, but move it off the trail. They want to make the blazes for us and put them on the trail, and we all agreed that the treadway will be more visible once we get more foot traffic. And right now, it's kind of hard to see where the DPW sort of hacked and slashed its way around to make this 1.5-mile loop. But with more traffic, we think it will stay, pretty good. It's not formal, it's not fancy.
The drawback is that there's so many low areas on the one trail going from, what do we say, partway down the path to the pond, and then it loops around to the parking lot. But unfortunately, it's got a lot of low areas that fill with water, and it's treacherous, and that's why the Friends of the North Attleboro Parks is building what they call bog bridges, which I had no idea, that was the name. So, we don't know how long that's going to take, but it's certainly going to solve, hopefully, the problem with low areas on the trail. And I think there'll end up to be one trail.
Yeah, we're looking to have one trail. Here's, Tyler's putting up a map.
The map we have.
One trail that's like 1.5 miles, and it goes, you can access it from the parking lot or from the stream. It really sort of starts at the stream there. And we have a really nice bridge over the stream that an Eagle Scout built for us, the same Eagle Scout who built the kiosk for the map. And they have agreed to make a picnic table to go at the fishing area, because right now there's only a bench. And they have also agreed to make a bench that will be placed about halfway around the loop on the trail in case someone wants to sit while they're taking the walk.
But we do have 2 picnic tables already there, right?
Yes, we have picnic tables and a bench. Yep.
Which we purchased when Shannon was with us last year.
And so my question becomes, how much does the Conservation Commission want to be involved in funding, in responsibilities, in oversight, anything like that? Because I don't want to start doling out responsibilities to other people if you guys want to be a little bit more involved so you can oversee what's going on. Or whether you just want to have me be the liaison with you when meeting with Tyler on occasion, making sure that we're ticking all the boxes that satisfy you. Those are my questions. Funding, responsibilities right now.
I think, I always hesitate to speak on behalf of everybody, but I think that we are limited in budget. I think we've had that discussion before, and I hesitate to try to take too much back into our control when we have someone as eager to, and who's facilitated other groups that can provide a lot of this for us. So I certainly don't think that we want to jump in and tell you everything needs to come through us. in fear of making it too bureaucratic or too red tape. I definitely think with the bog bridges, when we were on that walk a couple weeks ago, I had some concerns about permitting them under the Wetlands Protection Act and where the funding comes. If it looks like the Friends of North Attleboro Parks or the Scouts can make the bog bridges, then maybe we can handle our own permitting. There's a precedent for staff of commissions to submit a notice of intent
Right,
for the
Tyler
bog
had
bridges.
explained that to us, yeah.
And so similar to the Eagle Scout project, we did have him come before us to permit for the bridge.
Okay.
It could be a relatively straightforward process. I think that that's something that we can handle so that by the time the bog bridges are ready to go in, we have approval and we're not
Okay,
running
great.
into any wetlands violations. I think that's first and foremost where we can be of assistance with that. I certainly do think that we have a role to play in making sure that everything going on is copacetic to our mission, to the use of the property. But beyond that, as I said, I certainly don't want to cut your wings in any way from all the advocacy you've been doing so well with, just seeing this kind of come together. I will see if anybody else has any other.
Have you guys been there?
It's
Not yet.
It's lovely, and the problem is that we never took before the DPW did all of their work last year.
They were wonderful.
A little late now, but
They have really
amazing
transformed it.
transformation.
And and I live on the road, and we were out in our little kayaks this weekend, and there were people down there using it, fishing, kids swimming, family down on the picnic table, having a big dinner. I mean, people are using it already so much. It's just lovely to see.
Tyler, you might, I don't know how the storage goes for like old documents, but years ago, we had gone out there for, it was during one of those cleanups. There was couches, tires.
Yeah, there
This is going
Yeah,
back.
yeah.
And we took a bunch of pictures. And
Okay.
it might be on a drive somewhere in a folder. There are a bunch of before. I mean, they're very
Yeah.
before. Like, maybe 10, 12 years ago.
The amazing thing is we've noticed a decrease in litter since the transformation last year. And we were hoping that people now
Yeah.
have respect for the area.
Because
Except
people-
for
yeah.
some of the vandalism of the, they like to take the little signs off. As long as they don't damage furniture and the big signs, I guess we're doing okay.
Have there been any random like fire pits lately? Because I remember that was an issue. People setting random fires back there.
There was the one we saw when we took the trail around. We found a quite formal.
It actually
Fire
it looked
pit.
nicer
It
than
was very-
simply vandals.
They had
so.
cleared an area and they had made a fire pit, and it was deep in the woods. It was not, it was deep in the woods.
I was surprised it wasn't trashed. It's still something that we want to prevent, especially after the last forest fire in that area.
Yes.
But as far as vandals go, this fire pit looked like it was somebody at least respecting their illegal activities instead of trashing the site. So
Everybody please go and check it out.
And I'm glad you did pause. We paused. For a moment we're like, would we like destroy the fire pit? But it might actually be on private property.
yeah, that's the other thing.
Yeah,
we
so
needed to determine
that's
before
something that Tyler's helping us with right now. Tyler and I are working on trying to define the map and better understand the trail, because it appears that it sort of encroaches just a tiny bit at the,
Yeah, it may be hard to
little
see, but
point.
there's this weird, oddly shaped wide
Oh,
parcel.
yeah.
Who owns that? Is that like an individual or is it
It's not the town, but I'm not sure.
DCR?
I think it's I think somebody based out of Rhode Island, but.
yeah, so I don't know if you guys can see the purple lines, but there are
Right.
purple lines that show somebody else's property. So,
Does that go to like a house, or does it go out to a road, or does it just end at like a triangle?
It's just, I think it
It
comes to a
seems to
point. Comes
end-
to a point. It's
you
not, it's not
can't,
built.
it's not clear from this view, but 295 is very close down here,
So-
at
Well,
this
if
point.
It's not like any kind of easement, it's definitely a private property.
That's what I was asking. Like, is it owned by DCR,
It
like the
was-
Commonwealth or something?
Last I heard, it was private property.
Rhode Island Department of State
Oh, maybe it's
up there. It's the owner of that piece of property.
Is it RIDA, maybe? The Department of Environmental Management?
North Attleboro RELLC.
No idea.
Either way, the woods are divided into a couple different parcels, and unfortunately,
The vast majority is town.
And that's where the fire pit was, down at the loop
It may
there?
have been around in that area.
Yeah.
we weren't sure, and I wasn't. It looked like a nice enough pit. I wasn't about to,
Go over there and kick it down.
yeah, destroy somebody's private property.
Yep.
If there's a concern about burning and burning permits and where they can and can't burn on their private property, I would defer that strongly to the fire department. But being on site, there was no active fire, and we weren't sure.
And we really don't want to encourage, there's, when the DPW went through there and sort of carved out where the trail would be, they put very thick, rustic, woody mulch around to sort of defray the growth and define where the paths are going to be. And it's very flammable stuff, so we really cannot encourage any type of fires at all down there, because there's so much flammable
I
stuff.
want to remind Chief McQuaid that he promised last year to surveil the area, you know,
Oh, that's
on
a
our
great
behalf.
idea.
And keep, you know, like special attention there. I don't know how many times a week they would go down there, but I would like to maybe remind
I don't think
them.
we have any signage that says no fires either.
No, we don't.
I
Need
think
that.
we need some signage that says
probably
no
do.
fires.
If you do put any more signage up, if you get a ladder and put it up higher, then would be easy for anybody
Right.
to,
Isn't that a state,
take
if
that.
it's owned by a municipality, a state entity, there's no fires, isn't that like a law? I mean, I know it's Rhode Island, is that Mass? Does Mass have that law? Like no fires in public spaces?
well, even if you have a fire in your property, I think you have to call the fire department.
If it's in a contained pit, you don't. That's-
If it's a cooking fire, I think
If
that's what
the
we grew
cooking,
up
yeah.
with.
Right, but if it's burning brush or anything.
But if it's a
then-
public place, I think that like that's illegal.
What about
Right.
campgrounds, state-run campgrounds?
I think they have to fall under their own regulations of how they regulate and monitor, because they have staff there 24/7,
And they have,
you know?
they have the fire pits for cooking.
The rings, yeah.
I don't know. But thank you. You guys have done a lot of work. I was wondering if you've contacted the 10 Mile River people, because weren't they interested a while back in this property too?
I'm not aware of that, Deb.
Thought I-
Do you know anything
I
about that?
thought I
Marcia?
read
We had a little
newspaper.
incident with
Oh,
the man who runs it, and I don't think he wants to come back, because he claimed he wasn't recognized on social media for helping us blaze last year.
oh, that's too
He
bad.
was kind of bent out of shape.
Oh,
So I
sorry.
think he in particular, who I think is the head person, wants to come back.
Okay.
Shannon apologized and said, you know, we didn't mean to be so helpful. And we're sorry that we didn't appear in the newspaper or whatever, but we were very apologetic and he never responded.
Well, we certainly appreciate everything, and I encourage everybody who hasn't been there in the last 9 to 12 months. I mean, the parking area, I was able to get my Honda Fit down there with no issue. The potholes didn't
How's the-
swallow me, so.
Oh, really? Yeah, I was going to say, how about the potholes? They're scary.
The sight lines have improved, the area's been cleaned up. I can see why it's probably not as littered or dumped, in part because it looks nicer. Everything about it is more accessible. You probably get more traffic, more accountability, and
It
it
does
just.
look like an abandoned property.
Exactly.
DPW did a ton of work last year, a ton.
But they made it very clear that they
They're
don't.
done.
They're done. They don't have any more manpower to give us, and they don't have any more funding
No
to
overtime.
spend on overtime. And that's fine. They did a wonderful job, and they really got us started, and think we can get it done from here.
Yeah, they're catching up on projects that they've been on their list for a while, and they're pretty inundated with work.
So I think for action items out of this, we should be recircling back for a soft opening or a hard opening, maybe towards the end of summer as some of these things come together. That sounds kind of like the next step, the next
Yep.
formal step,
Yep.
as we're doing the back and forth. I know you're working with Tyler, and you've got my email as well. But the next thing the commission needs to do is schedule that. It sounds like maybe we can aim for like a mid to late August after some of these things, if we at least have roadmapped some of these things, if we haven't completed them yet.
And back to what you said about you getting the permitting from the wetlands and us getting the bog bridges built. I was on the phone with John Gautieri, he's the Friends of North Attleboro Parks, when I was driving here just now. And he wanted to give me an update last minute. And he said they had reached out to several scout troops today. And we're waiting to hear back on who is next in line that needs a project. But as you know, sometimes the Eagle Scout projects can be pretty formal process and take a little while. So we talked about the structure of the bridge, we talked about the cost, because I want to speak to KNAB's board and see how much they're willing to put toward the building of the materials and all that stuff.
And Jill is now a member.
So,
Official beautification coordinator, but she is on our board.
but anyway, so we'll just keep talking, we'll just keep moving it forward.
Oh.
All right?
I have a question. Does anybody on the commission or either of you have experience measuring for bog bridges? Like, is a certain time of year that we really want to be out there? Probably, is it very soon, or can it just happen? I'm not sure how precise the measurements should be for those.
Yeah, I mean, it's really based on the materials. There's a couple different designs you can go with, but the most basic is some kind of timber bases and then stringers that run along it.
That's what he told me he was going to use. He said he had 6x6s that he was going to cut and have 3 underneath the long planks that you said that was your preference, and that he thought they would cost like $55 a piece, and I think we need 6 or 7, but I don't know what we do if, can we move some, let's say there's a wet area and the bog bridge doesn't quite cover it. Can we put a couple rocks that are already there to step onto before or after the bog bridge?
We can certainly put it in the permit. It looks like you were here for some of the other conversations, and one of the big things that we deal with is what's going to get appealed. So the wetland permitting, though it goes through us, does get reviewed by the state, whether they want to approve bog bridges without any kind of, that's a hurdle that we're going to have to jump over, because technically spamming these streams, I don't think we're dealing into riverfront, but we do have to be careful about where those footings are going into some of these water bodies, if there's moving water, if it is a stream channel. So I think the next step is for us to get back out there and maybe map the locations of these.
That would be ideal.
And then we can start discussing whether placing boulders on either side or maybe multiple bridges, but it really will come down to how can we best cross this without having impacts to the wetland resource. And in rare but seen circumstances, I've heard of DEP kicking back on some of these trail projects where they asked for a foot or 2 of wetland replication, something relatively minuscule for something like a bridge. It seems minor to me, but we need to be at least prepared to address wetland impacts and mitigation.
Okay.
So that's, again, why I would say us doing it in-house is going to be easier, because we're a board familiar with this. And I think the resources for you to try to put that together and have somebody else, I think something like this might be out of the realm of a Boy Scout. Should DEP again trigger for something as simple as bog bridges and say, you're going to have to replicate a little extra here or something.
Well, if I could just ask whenever that might come about, that re-walking the trail and sort of identifying the spots, if you could give me a few days' notice, because I'd really like John Gautieri to go with you as well, since he's going to be the liaison with the scout guys and all of that stuff. I'd really like him to see what you're thinking, if you don't mind.
Absolutely, yeah.
I also think doing it in the fall is a better time to do it, because there's no animals in the process of,
That's a good point.
Yeah, nesting.
Everybody's got their babies right now.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
I definitely
It might be dry.
want to map it though sooner
Oh,
rather than
yeah,
probably in
now
June,
when
because
it's
well, it's
wet.
wet, yeah. Because if it all of a sudden dries up and then you get
don't know.
spring next year, you get into April and somebody's like, I'm going to walk this, and they can't reach the bog bridge because it turns out from the months of February through May, there's actually quite a bit more that they have to traverse.
Way back, so there would be
No.
no impact or not? Well, that makes me nervous in the fall.
Yeah, the hunters are in
Well,
that area
sometimes
too.
in kiosks, we put signage saying, this is the
Months is
hunting
hunting season.
season, or this is where you can find it, and you have to wear orange.
Yeah, not recently, but in the past.
To get an idea of how the signage, we put that up there. like
Okay,
what's going on
I'll go
times of
check it
year,
out.
What to wear, what to look for.
Okay, great. I'll go check it out.
We don't want any interference of
Instances.
hunters and bog bridge builders or anything.
No.
Well, the hunting is until end of November, so I don't think they'd be
For
building
deer hunting
any
anyway.
bridges.
I think bow hunting, yeah, starts in October.
Really?
Yeah, I saw one of them.
I don't think there should be
Based on the
any
program in
hunting
Framingham,
on
it's
that
usually
property.
early
Is there a way
October.
to get that changed? Is there a way to get property deemed not huntable? No?
Yeah, we could.
It's
make-
conservation land.
That's right, we could make it. Last time we tried to do that, there was,
Objection.
oh my God, the hunters
dear.
in this town came out in full force, and there was people on the board that didn't.
Oh dear, okay.
Yeah, yeah, I would love to have no hunting.
The whole
And this was right
idea of
after the woman in
even
Norton
just a
got
hiker
shot.
wanting to go through on a nice fall day.
Have to wear orange, bright orange.
And no yellow, no
Might-
white hats.
It might help that it's such a wet, the entire property's so wet. That might
Oh, no,
help.
there's hunters that go out. The
Still
one
in the
time
wet,
when we
in the wet.
were,
Hunters that go out there. When we first moved there 12 years ago and would walk back there were stands
Oh, huh.
back there for hunters to,
I think
sit in.
improving education both for walkers as well as hunters, and once it's fully established, I think you run into more familiarity. I think that the risk goes down when people know that there's a traverse trail. You can even put some signage that says trail coming through this area so that hunters know when they start
It's worked
encroaching on
on
that.
Shorty, yeah,
Yeah.
never any issues.
I mean, when I was working for the town of Framingham before they became the city of Framingham, we ran a deer hunting program on one of our conservation parcels. We had an overabundance of deer. It was part of our deer management process. We did have a limited number of permits for the site. They had to go through a proficiency test, but we had no issues having well-educated bow hunters on the same property as our walkers and, our dog walkers, our hikers.
Makes me nervous.
Obviously, we put, the signage is a big thing, so walkers need to be aware. You inform them of when the season is, so that if they don't want to be out there during hunting season. But we actually got quite a bit of really useful information on the status of the trails, the status of the walkers, the status of the wildlife from our hunters. They ended up being a great resource for our conservation efforts. I'm not saying pro or against hunting. It's just that was one of my job
It's a
duties, and
very-
we found that we were able to
There are a lot
utilize
of
that.
benefits. As much as it doesn't, there are tons of benefits.
Somehow symbiotic, somehow, in a weird way.
do you see a lot of deer in Turkey and things like that
Um,
at your house?
The deer population has come back this year a lot.
Oh, where was it before?
It had dwindled over the past 5 years.
Interesting.
And the foxes have dwindled. There were more foxes. But
I get deer in my front yard sometimes, and I honestly, it blew me away because I'm not from here originally, and I never had deer in Hyde Park, and so just seeing them in my front, I was blown away by it. I loved it. I have a tree in my front
so
yard.
they ate your tree.
Yeah, so I have a berry tree, but it was great though. I mean, they totally used me for the 2 months that and then they were gone. But it was, but no, I loved seeing them
Where
though.
do you live now?
I'm right back at the Falls Pond area, so I'm off of Mount Hope. I'm on Lakewood Drive. So it's but yeah, I would get them frequently, and then not so much this past year, but the first year I was here. But yeah, the whole fall, September through just about November, they were there. It was awesome. Yeah.
I haven't seen too much deer lately either. I thought it was because the weather was so good, the winters are so mild. They don't have.
In the fall.
I'm obsessed with them because they just had babies.
Oh, nice.
My husband's like, we gotta get rid of them. I'm like, nope, we're not doing anything.
Except
with
Tyler.
Yeah, Tyler.
Tyler lives
far
way
from
too
here.
far away.
Way, yeah.
Tyler's got coyotes probably.
Turkeys, coyotes, yep. I don't know about coyotes.
So thank you again for all the work you guys have been doing. It's
you
just
guys,
wonderful.
and
I really
thank
enjoyed the
Tyler.
walk, and
Yeah.
All right,
we'll
thanks
be
to everyone.
working with you in the future we'll try to prioritize some of the mapping for the bog bridges so that we can get the permitting done
That'd be
sooner
awesome.
rather than later.
I'll keep my eyes open to see if we can find any extra money at any point too.
Thank you, Deb. That would be
Yeah.
great. Thank
They're
you.
non-budgets. They're like,
Budget and
Are there any
stuff.
couches we can check change for in town hall?
my husband was mowing the lawn yesterday.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Snake skin in our shed. And then we saw it on the side of the shed.
So some of the other things on our agenda, I think it was under commission business, we have the hay policy, the haying and mowing. That was coming up for,
Last June, the commission gave Logan Mankins permission they'd offered to mow the 2 fields, I think, just south of what's the name of the street, Depot Street in the southwest part of town. There's conservation land out there.
What street?
Depot Street. So I understand that they at least did that last year. I'm not sure if they did the prior years. I understand it was a verbal agreement that just the commission was like, sure, thanks, thanks for doing that. I had a little bit back and forth with Logan, just looking for a little bit more detail on like what exactly, how much did they mow, when did they mow last year. I didn't get the info on when they mowed, but they did mow the entirety of the 2 fields once at some point last year. I was curious about, because Shannon had already compiled some resources on hang mowing policies throughout the state, state recommendations, but also to other towns. And do they have guidance on managing the grass and open space, conservation land? There's quite a range of like times of year when people recommend it. I think the town of Kingston is very strict about like late November, early December, or February, February, restricting the mowing to those times. But I think state guidance is like September 15th or later in the fall.
Sorry, what did you say, September?
September 15th or later in the fall.
He mowed last time. I think he came before us in July or something.
Yeah, I think he mowed earlier.
You
I think
do?
we said, yeah. But I would prefer to maintain the habitat for nesting birds, ground birds in the field. And like I had emailed you, someone said like at least August 15th, would be ideal, or somewhere after that. Cliff, I wish Cliff were here
I
too.
was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, because he said something about last year, something about the hay gets wet or something like that, or it degrades, and so, and I was wondering if you could ask the mower. We've been doing this, I think, Lindsay, too, with different people
Sure.
over many years,
Yep.
because it's good to maintain open fields and spaces too, and the only way you can do that is by mowing.
Occasionally, yep.
But I just think the timing is kind of critical for some of the species that are, are of concern or even endangered in Massachusetts.
Didn't you mention too, there's some like plant life too, like, not ground coverings, but there's like plant species too that need that time to kind of like rejuvenate in the soil. Were you talking about that too one year? Not just the animal life, but plant life too?
I wasn't talking about that, but somebody else might have been. Yeah.
I just sworn there was something
Yeah.
else.
It sounds like a soil
Maybe-
ecology. I mean,
Table
Oh, it was
or
your
the-
daughter.
Oh,
That's
Jess?
how long ago. Yeah, she was talking something about the soils and the rejuvenation and nutrients and. No, I'm
my daughter
sorry.
Jess, I have a daughter Jess.
Yeah.
It's just about your age. I was on the
That's-
commission before.
That's who it was. Thank you. Okay, when you said the hydrology, I'm like, yes, it was okay. Sorry.
So I guess I'm wondering if the commission would like to at least have a couple of guidelines or requirements for,
Yes.
or just let Logan do whatever they want.
No.
Yeah.
Because it's not only him. I mean, I just
Yep.
noticed I guess they call it the recycling center. I kind of call it the dump. You know how it's a covered landfill on Mount Hope Street, and they mowed the other day. It's like, why do you have to do that? Nobody's there, except for the animals, maybe. I think if they had just
Probably
waited,
when they
I'm
have
sure
the
they
budget
just
or something.
Yeah, I'm sure they just think it looks better.
Might be to prevent like the roots of like woody shrubs and trees from
Well, yeah, you
breaking
can
up
do
the,
that by
the cap.
mowing anytime during the summer, though. It's just the nesting birds. Wait till the fledglings can fly away,
Yeah, that's a good point.
so maybe, Tyler, can you try to draft up the recommendations that you have into a formal agreement document of some kind, or template or something, and maybe we can review it for the next meeting, and hopefully we'll have Cliff here as well.
Yep.
I just know he has so much institutional knowledge as well as knowledge on, he always seems really enthusiastic about the haying, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, could you also ask, Logan is his name?
Yep.
What he thinks the pros and cons are of like mowing in June, July, or August?
Yeah.
I can't see mowing in November or December,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Not that quite that late.
I guess it's possible. I know Kingston has a lot of horses.
Mhm.
I don't know if that has anything to do with it.
I definitely think checking in with Logan and seeing what's
Yeah.
beneficial to him, because if we lose people that want to mow it, if we make it so
Yeah.
restrictive that we no
Yeah.
longer have the opportunity to mow it, then we're just giving up a managed meadow, so we
Right.
want to.
And we do need that kind of open space too. But if he could just hold off to sometime between, I think the middle of July to the middle of August, somewhere in that time period,
Yeah.
I would feel much better about it personally.
Yeah.
Yeah, but look what other towns do, yeah. What Logan thinks, we'll see what, I know what Cliff's gonna say. I mean, I've heard it before, but he can say it again.
Sorry, I didn't catch what you said, Deb. Sorry.
Oh, I think Cliff has some strong opinions.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And he's not here,
Yep.
so we'll let him speak to.
I know there's like this specific agreement, but also the general haying and mowing policy for conservation open
Yeah.
space.
Yeah,
Formalize in the coming months.
yeah, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so if we can get that for the June 25th
Yeah.
on the other business, hopefully Draper won't take as long. We'll be in a place where we're ready to just close it, and we can limit discussion only to what hasn't already been discussed. But I'll refrain from speaking, I guess, further until we're back in session for that. We also have a set of minutes tonight. It was a long one. I did not have a chance to really review them. I don't know how everybody else is feeling about
I
them.
didn't look at him either.
So maybe we'll defer
I don't know
those.
if we have a quorum, do we?
We do, because everybody was present. We have
Oh, okay.
exactly 4.
Okay.
Brian would not be able to vote on this set of minutes.
Was
That's
was he?
probably-
or
With
was-
minutes, there's something that he might actually be able to, if he feels that they're accurate, he could potentially vote on it.
Just wait until Cliff comes back
Yeah.
at the next meeting then.
Yeah,
And then we'll have 2 sets of minutes probably.
yeah.
Maybe.
I mean, technically Brian was here for most or all of the set of minutes, and
Is this our second meeting? Because the last one was
his
canceled.
first.
First official.
one.
Oh, okay.
You've sat in.
Shadowed, yeah, I
He was
sat in
sitting,
on a few.
yeah, he was sitting in the audience.
Yeah, so he technically witnessed all the stuff in the minutes.
I think
Did you
it's
write
just
the
as
minutes?
easy
Or is that
to-
what you were doing?
I think it's just as easy to defer to the next one, because then Cliff will be here probably.
Yeah. We'll have a chance to read them.
Any other commission business, Tyler?
There's a lot of things going on that could update you on. I'm trying to think.
Did you go to the fish hatchery last Saturday?
Yeah, that was excellent. Yeah, Brian stopped by.
Wasn't that cool?
It was great. It was good to meet some other organizations and individuals and the residents and the community.
Were there a lot of people there?
I don't know what to compare it to, but
Were there more than 20 people there?
at any given time there are probably like maybe 40 people there, something like that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Taking tours of the fish hatchery. I set up a table for the town conservation commission. It was pretty much just
Cool.
in that nearby there. the whole
Did
time.
they talk about the research they've been doing, or?
They may have on the tour, but I didn't take the tour.
Didn't take the tour,
Except
yeah.
that
Did you talk about how they were breeding Brooklyn trout and rainbow trout?
Oh,
They were
right.
calling them cheetah trout. It was pretty cool. Like they had like the spots and everything on them, and that was my first time over there, but it was pretty cool. Yeah.
I was just reading about those earlier today, not here in town, but just related to fishing. I was talking to somebody else about taking a fishing trip. We were talking about trout, and
Yeah.
weird timing that you'd bring that up.
I love fishing.
They used to try to breed salmon there and restock some of the Massachusetts rivers for 25 years. It didn't work. Yeah.
I'm working on a project over the Connecticut River in Springfield and West Springfield, and I guess they have the first and only set of short-nosed sturgeon juveniles or something in this area. And I'm like, oh, great. I have to permit that whole thing. But it's cool.
Yeah.
It's cool that they're there, but
Yeah,
not
it
cool
is.
for our project.
Take good care of those babies.
I'm not doing anything. I'm staying away.
Given how late it's getting, any other pressing business, I guess? No worries, I just.
No, we have some interesting situations. Like I was telling Clay about an emergency drain, sinkhole situation over with the Emerald Square Mall, which is right next to an artificial pond, detention pond. So we're trying to sort through what exactly is it under the jurisdiction of Conservation Commission, depending on when it was built, maybe some change in the late 1990s or around 2000.
Is this the one across the street?
It's on the west side of Route 1.
Oh, right in front of the mall? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah,
That one?
it's.
Yep.
Oh, I would say that would be non-jurisdictional because it's so
yeah.
small.
I did look into that. Not only that, it's maintained.
And it's
It's a
man-made,
stormwater
yeah,
feature.
yeah.
It's maintained.
Yeah.
Didn't they put that in when the mall was built in 91 or 2? That was part of it, wasn't it?
Oh.
I was
Yeah, I
out of
thought that
town
was in
and-
their maintenance plan to take care of that on their own, just like the pumping station across the way.
Yeah, it does look
He's talking
maintained.
about the pothole though, in the road, not
There's-
the
sinkhole we
call
call
it.
it.
Sinkhole.
Which one?
They
Is
call
it
it
a pothole or a
they
sinkhole?
call it a sinkhole, and it looks like it's a good, like the size of this table, or
Where is it?
off the drive right next to the retention pond.
Is it on Route 1?
No, no.
Oh,
That's
okay.
part of the spring coming back. There's a spring up there. And
Oh. So
that's why there was so much battling about having it built back then, is everyone was like, there's a spring. Well, it found its way.
That's what the regs need to be updated with, are underground like springs.
Yeah, that's what yeah, definitely.
Good luck with that.
thanks.
Bylaw.
Yeah, and there's over at 4 Hawkins Road is coming back at some point. I've been in touch with Mike Briggs, who was here last August, September, requesting a certificate of compliance, and then it was a bit of back and forth with the commission, which eventually denied on September 26th, telling them to come back in the spring once they've addressed mainly like plant issue invasive species. They're talking about wanting this little triangle of protected area they would like to build and have as lawn, which I think the commission agreed to, as long as they address the issue. I can look back at the minutes and see exactly what the situation was and what their special conditions are, but I think they need a landscape plan. It's been a little bit. I need to follow up with them because I think just make sure that they're clear that it seemed like when they reached out to us a few weeks ago that they were looking to us to provide a plan or to approve a plan of some sort, but we don't have a plan from them, as far as I know. So that's a little bit of a challenging situation, back and forth, just trying to figure out what's going on. And so there's a couple situations. A number of people are concerned about flooding. Water's close to their house and wanting to divert water or pump water out of the wetlands. So I'm learning about enforcement, kind of the steps of engaging with people and who have, like I alluded to, there's one person off who's been apparently pumping the wetlands out on the weekends when it's been rainy. It was at least probably a month ago I talked to them, and they essentially admitted to it, and I was like, no, you can't do that. We'll have to figure something out. They built like on right next to the wetland, so it's not surprising that they're having water issues, but in touch with DPW, trying to figure out what's the history of that site. So that one's a little challenging too, trying to figure out what my role is, what may be the commission's role in enforcement. Yeah.
Great.
Sounds like you're busy.
Yes.
Anybody have anything before we adjourn? I think we've concluded pretty much everything on the agenda. In that case, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All those abstaining? We stand adjourned at 8:39 p.m.